Life tests us with challenges, and relationships are no exception. But what if I told you that the key to building strong, healthy relationships isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself? Stoic philosophy teaches us wisdom, discipline, and emotional control, the very foundations of lasting connections. Instead of reacting to anger, we choose patience. Instead of seeking validation, we cultivate inner peace. A Stoic relationship isn't about avoiding problems. It's about facing them with resilience, understanding, and virtue. Today, let's explore how Stoic principles can transform the way we love, communicate, and grow with others. In Stoic philosophy, one of the most fundamental principles is the understanding of control. The Stoics teach that there are two categories of things in life: those we can control and those we cannot. Our thoughts, actions, decisions, and attitudes fall within our control. Other people's opinions, behaviors, and emotions do not. When we try to control what is outside our reach, we invite frustration, disappointment, and resentment into our relationship. A healthy relationship begins with self-mastery. Instead of attempting to change someone else, Stoicism teaches us to focus on improving our own character. If a partner, friend, or family member reacts with anger, we cannot dictate their response, but we can control how we choose to engage. By focusing on our own discipline, we maintain inner peace and prevent unnecessary conflict. People often struggle in relationships because they expect others to behave according to their desires. They believe that love, respect, or kindness should be reciprocated in a certain way. But Stoicism reminds us that expectations are dangerous when placed on things beyond our control. Instead of demanding change from others, we should cultivate acceptance and patience. This principle also applies to emotional reactions. When we allow another person's words or actions to dictate our emotions, we surrender our power. The Stoic approach is to acknowledge our feelings, but not be enslaved by them. If someone disappoints us, we recognize the feeling, but respond with wisdom rather than impulse. By doing so, we maintain our dignity and avoid unnecessary pain. When we embrace this philosophy, relationships become less about controlling others and more about personal growth. We develop deeper connections because we no longer approach interactions with unrealistic demands, but with a mindset of resilience, understanding, and self-improvement. Emotional discipline is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy and a key to building healthy relationships. In life, we encounter situations that test our patience, trigger our anger, or stir up feelings of disappointment. Many relationships suffer because people react impulsively, allowing emotions to control their words and actions. However, the Stoics teach that true strength comes from mastering our emotions rather than being ruled by them. When someone says something hurtful, the natural reaction might be to lash out in anger or withdraw in sadness. But a Stoic approach requires pausing before responding. Instead of reacting immediately, we take a step back and assess the situation with reason. Is this insult truly harming us, or is it merely words from another person who may be acting out of their own struggles? By practicing emotional discipline, we learn to separate what happens to us from how we choose to feel about it. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. The Stoics never advocated for becoming emotionless, but rather for understanding emotions and responding to them with wisdom. When faced with conflict, we acknowledge our feelings, but choose not to be consumed by them. We recognize that frustration, jealousy, and irritation are fleeting and do not have to dictate our actions. In relationships, emotional discipline allows us to communicate more effectively. Instead of reacting defensively, we listen. Instead of escalating conflict, we remain composed. This self-restraint fosters trust and respect, making interactions more meaningful and less chaotic. It also prevents unnecessary misunderstandings, as many conflicts arise from impulsive words spoken in moments of heightened emotion. The more we practice emotional discipline, the stronger our relationships become. We create an environment where calmness replaces drama, understanding replaces resentment, and personal growth takes priority over fleeting emotions. Virtue is the foundation of Stoic philosophy, and in relationships, it serves as the guiding principle for how we interact with others. The Stoics defined virtue through 4 key pillars: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. When we apply these virtues in our relationships, we create connections built on integrity, trust, and mutual respect. Wisdom allows us to navigate relationships with understanding and perspective. It helps us recognize what truly matters and prevents us from getting caught up in trivial arguments or misunderstandings. A wise person does not react impulsively, but instead seeks to understand the situation, seeing beyond the surface of emotions and temporary frustrations. Wisdom encourages us to listen actively, consider different viewpoints, and make decisions that align with long-term harmony rather than short-term gratification. Courage in relationships means having the strength to be honest, even when the truth is uncomfortable. It means standing by our principles while also being open to feedback and growth. Many relationships suffer because people avoid difficult conversations out of fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or fear of vulnerability. But true connection requires courage, the courage to express our feelings sincerely, the courage to admit when we are wrong, and the courage to stand firm in our values. Justice in relationships means treating others with fairness, kindness, and respect. It involves being a reliable partner, friend, or family member, someone who acts with integrity and does not seek to manipulate or control others. Justice teaches us to value reciprocity, not in a transactional way, but in a way that nurtures a balanced and healthy dynamic. When we treat others justly, we build trust and create relationships based on mutual respect rather than selfish desires. Temperance, or self-discipline, prevents us from acting out of excess, whether in words, emotions, or actions. It reminds us to practice moderation, ensuring that we do not let anger, jealousy, or impulsivity damage our relationships. A person who lacks temperance may say hurtful things in the heat of the moment or demand too much from others, leading to strained interactions. But by practicing self-restraint, we cultivate patience, understanding, and emotional stability. When we lead with virtue, we ensure that our relationships are built on principles that promote harmony and growth. Instead of being led by fleeting emotions, selfish desires, or external pressures, we establish connections based on wisdom, strength, fairness, and balance. Virtue becomes the foundation that sustains love, trust, and deep, meaningful bonds. One of the greatest obstacles to building healthy relationships is the need for external validation. Many people seek approval, love, and recognition from others to feel valued. They rely on compliments to feel attractive, agreement to feel intelligent, and attention to feel important. However, Stoicism teaches that true fulfillment comes from within, not from the opinions or actions of others. When we depend on external validation, we give others control over our self-worth. If someone praises us, we feel good. If they criticize us, we feel inadequate. This emotional instability creates insecurity, leading to a constant need for reassurance. In relationships, this can become exhausting for both ourselves and those around us. We may start seeking approval in unhealthy ways, becoming overly agreeable, fearful of confrontation, or even manipulating situations to receive the validation we crave. The Stoic approach is to develop an internal sense of worth based on virtue and self-awareness rather than external opinions. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" or "Am I good enough for them?" we shift our focus to, "Am I acting with integrity?" and "Am I being the best version of myself?" This mindset removes the power of others to dictate our emotional state. We learn to value ourselves not for how we are perceived, but for who we truly are. This does not mean ignoring feedback or rejecting meaningful relationships. Instead, it means that our sense of identity and happiness are not dependent on external approval. When we let go of the need for validation, we bring more authenticity into our relationships. We communicate honestly, love without fear, and connect with others from a place of strength rather than insecurity. This creates healthier, more balanced relationships where love and respect flow freely without the burden of constant affirmation. Discomfort and challenges are inevitable in any relationship. Whether it's a disagreement, a moment of disappointment, or a period of emotional distance, difficulties will arise. Many people try to avoid these hardships, believing that a healthy relationship should always be easy and conflict-free. However, Stoicism teaches that growth comes through adversity. Instead of fearing challenges, we should embrace them as opportunities to strengthen our bonds and develop resilience. In relationships, discomfort often emerges when we face hard truths about ourselves or our partners. It might be a painful conversation about unmet expectations, an argument that reveals deep-seated insecurities, or the realization that we must change certain behaviors. The Stoic approach is not to avoid these moments, but to lean into them with a rational and composed mindset. Rather than viewing conflict as a threat, we see it as a lesson, a chance to learn, to improve, and to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the people we care about. Avoiding discomfort only leads to stagnation. When we refuse to address problems, resentment builds, misunderstandings fester, and emotional distance grows. But when we face these challenges head-on, with patience and wisdom, we create stronger, more authentic connections. A Stoic does not let fear of confrontation dictate their actions. Instead, they communicate openly, listen actively, and work towards solutions rather than avoiding difficulties. Hardships also reveal the true nature of a relationship. When everything is going well, it's easy to feel connected. But the real test comes in moments of struggle. A relationship built on Stoic principles remains steady through adversity because it is rooted in resilience, not fleeting emotions. By embracing discomfort, we cultivate patience, understanding, and a deeper appreciation for the strength that challenges bring to our relationships. Clear and honest communication is essential for building strong relationships. Many conflicts arise not because of deep incompatibilities, but because of misunderstandings, unspoken expectations, or misinterpretations. Stoicism teaches that we must speak with clarity, listen with patience, and express ourselves with both honesty and kindness. When we communicate effectively, we create relationships based on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. One of the biggest obstacles to clear communication is emotional impulsivity. When we speak out of anger, frustration, or insecurity, our words often do more harm than good. A Stoic approach requires pausing before responding, ensuring that what we say is both necessary and constructive. Instead of reacting emotionally, we take a moment to evaluate the situation logically. Are we speaking to resolve the issue, or are we just venting our frustration? Are our words aimed at understanding, or are they meant to hurt? By maintaining self-discipline, we prevent unnecessary conflict and ensure that our words serve a meaningful purpose. Honesty is another pillar of Stoic communication. Many people avoid difficult conversations out of fear of hurting someone, fear of rejection, or fear of confrontation. But withholding the truth only leads to misunderstandings and resentment. Stoicism teaches that honesty must be paired with wisdom. It's not about being brutally honest, but about expressing the truth in a way that is constructive and respectful. Instead of blaming, we focus on understanding. Instead of accusing, we express our thoughts with clarity and patience. Listening is just as important as speaking. A Stoic does not listen to respond, they listen to understand. By truly hearing what the other person is saying, without interrupting, judging, or forming a response in our minds too quickly, we create space for meaningful dialogue. This builds deeper connections and allows for more thoughtful, solution-focused conversations. No one is perfect, neither we nor the people we build relationships with. Yet, many conflicts arise from unrealistic expectations and the inability to accept imperfections in ourselves and others. Stoicism teaches that instead of demanding perfection, we should embrace reality with patience and understanding. A healthy relationship is not about finding a flawless person, but about accepting flaws with wisdom and grace. People make mistakes, they have weaknesses, bad habits, and moments of failure. If we expect perfection from them, we set ourselves up for disappointment and frustration. The Stoic approach is to recognize that imperfection is part of human nature. Rather than reacting with anger or resentment when someone falls short of our expectations, we can choose to approach the situation with patience. We focus on what truly matters rather than dwelling on minor flaws or temporary setbacks. This also applies to self-acceptance. Many people are overly critical of themselves, feeling unworthy of love or respect because of their imperfections. Stoicism reminds us that growth is a process. Instead of being ashamed of our weaknesses, we should acknowledge them and work on improving. At the same time, we must extend the same understanding to others. Holding on to unrealistic standards can push people away and create unnecessary tension. Accepting imperfections does not mean tolerating harmful behavior. It means distinguishing between flaws that are a natural part of being human and those that indicate toxic or destructive tendencies. A Stoic relationship is built on wisdom, the ability to know when to accept, when to forgive, and when to set boundaries. When we stop expecting perfection, we free ourselves from disappointment and cultivate relationships based on genuine connection, mutual growth, and deep respect. Resentment is a heavy burden that poisons relationships and prevents true connection. When we hold on to past wrongs, we allow negative emotions to control our thoughts and actions. Stoicism teaches that letting go of resentment is not about ignoring harm or pretending nothing happened. It is about freeing ourselves from unnecessary suffering and choosing inner peace over prolonged anger. When someone wrongs us, our initial reaction may be to dwell on the injustice, replaying the situation in our minds and fueling our resentment. However, Stoicism reminds us that the past is beyond our control. We cannot change what has happened, but we can control how we respond. Clinging to resentment only prolongs our own pain, keeping us emotionally trapped in something we cannot alter. Instead, a Stoic chooses to focus on the present and future rather than being weighed down by past grievances. Forgiveness in Stoic philosophy is not about excusing bad behavior or pretending it did not hurt. It is about releasing ourselves from the emotional grip of anger. This does not mean allowing others to mistreat us repeatedly, but rather recognizing that holding on to bitterness serves no purpose. A Stoic does not let negative emotions dictate their well-being. They acknowledge the hurt, learn from it, and move forward with wisdom and strength. Letting go of resentment also strengthens relationships. When we refuse to carry past conflicts into the present, we create space for growth and understanding. We approach disagreements with rationality rather than emotional baggage. Instead of seeking revenge or harboring grudges, we seek resolution and personal peace. By choosing to let go, we cultivate emotional resilience and create relationships that are not defined by past mistakes, but by the strength and wisdom gained through overcoming them. Love in its purest form is not about possession or control. It is about appreciation, respect, and shared growth. Many relationships suffer because people confuse love with attachment, clinging to others out of fear, insecurity, or a need for validation. Stoicism teaches that true love is rooted in purpose, not dependence. When we love with purpose, we focus on giving rather than demanding, on understanding rather than controlling, and on supporting rather than possessing. Attachment often stems from a fear of loss. People become overly dependent on their partners, believing their happiness is tied to the presence or actions of another person. This creates an unhealthy dynamic where love is driven by need rather than by choice. But Stoicism reminds us that everything in life is impermanent. Instead of fearing change, we should appreciate relationships for what they are in the present moment. Love should be a source of strength, not weakness. A conscious decision to support and uplift another person, rather than an emotional chain that binds us to insecurity. When we love with purpose, we respect the individuality of the other person. We do not try to control their thoughts, actions, or choices, nor do we expect them to fulfill all our emotional needs. A Stoic relationship is built on mutual growth, where both individuals support each other's journey without trying to dictate its course. This type of love is resilient because it is not based on fleeting emotions or unrealistic expectations, but on a shared commitment to virtue, wisdom, and understanding. By practicing non-attachment, we experience love in its healthiest form. We cherish the people in our lives without fearing their absence. We give love freely, not because we need something in return, but because it aligns with our highest values. This creates relationships that are not only strong, but also deeply fulfilling.